Well, nice induction ceremony, ladies and gents. All thank you for showing up on here tonight, and on behalf of the officers and the members of the Alumni Untitled Chapter, I welcome you to this evening of the Phi Theta Kappa Fall 2020 induction ceremony for our new members. And as you can see, 2020 has kind of dealt us a little bit of a hand, thanks to social distancing and online conferences. But you know what, guys? You guys are amazing. We pushed through that whole tactic thing of last semester, and we showed up today, which is honestly still incredible. Now, our great news for tonight, as you can see, thanks to all the COVID stuff and everything going on tonight, we don't exactly have many, but we do have our tonight's speaker, which is the bearded sage known as David Morse. We have our advisors, Tonka Curtis and Aaron Westerfield. Now, before we hear from the great old man, we have something to talk about. So the bearded sage of Rock Stars, Professor David Morse, was originally born in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, in fact, he's lived all over the United States when he was growing up. As a child and young adult, he encountered hardships and circumstances that spurred him on to be the person he is today. He started working to become his familiarity with community colleges at Santa Rosa Junior College, graduating with an Associate of Science. During the time, the man became a Platinarian lecturer, which soon evolved to become standing room only lectures. So, to say he was popular was an understatement. After he graduated from Santa Rosa, he graduated from the University of California at Davis with a Bachelor in Sciences in Geology, then on to San Francisco State University, where he received a Master's of Sciences in Applied Geosciences. Here, he also received the prestigious Graduate Research Achievement Award for his work on subduction ecologites, among many other honors. After graduating, and also his last year of student year, at San Francisco State University, he taught at the university, becoming known as the utility interviewer of the Geo Department, as he offered courses in oceanography, geology, and paleontology. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me if he knows everything you're standing on. After a time, he returned to his student at Santa Rosa Junior College, where he taught a number of courses that ranged from natural resource management, geology, and astronomy. Here, he innovated the college's online/hybrid class to the campus. Simultaneously, he was a key part in the development of the cooperative learning experience in the Earth and Space Sciences Department. Since 2011, can you believe that he did that all while he was 32? He has been here at Eastern Arizona colleges to help younger generations ignite the same passion he has for the astronomy and geosciences. The model that frames his teaching life is dedicated to student success. And we're actually very glad to have him here with us today, as he's gone through a little certain things that made it a little shaky if he could. Now, without that being said, without further ado, I present to you man, the myth, and the legend, Professor David Morris.
Thank you all very, very much. I'm honored to be here, privileged to be here. With your permission, I'm going to forego the mask while I'm at the microphone, where we socially distanced. I am a little bit shaky, so if I lean on this, I think what I'll do. Put that down, I've got the podium to lean on here. Oh, well, hello and welcome. I've given this quite a lot of thought, and I struggled, honestly, to find a topic that I thought would be interesting enough for you. So I fell back on a technique that's worked for me in the past, where I sort of think about things that are bothering me. And there's something that bothers me. When I turn to the History Channel or the Discovery Channel or sometimes even Nat Geo, I see all kinds of things about some of the worst things in the world, some of the worst things that happen and some of the worst people. And so it occurred to me that maybe I should do something about this just for myself, and perhaps I should come up with a list of people that I admire and that I would consider to be heroes. And I already have such a list. I think everyone that's an adult sort of acquires that sort of list. Often it's your favorite uncle or your mom or what have you. But I wanted to expand that. I wanted something more. I become very disheartened when in almost any group of people, especially adults, you get people over the age of 40, and for sure they can name 4 or 5 horrible people from the 20th century, right? The History Channel sometimes dedicates entire weeks to Hitler. And it just bothers me that even myself, I have a hard time sometimes coming up with a list of names of people who saved millions of lives. Wouldn't that be nice? If it just rolled off of our, off of our tongue, just like these other names. And I'm not even sure I want to name them, but you know the names I'm talking about. These big mass killers of the 20th century that we all know. And there's more detail in this. I thought, how is it that 12 human beings have walked on the moon? 12 human beings have walked on the moon. Most of us are lucky if we can name 2 of them. And yet, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of my students can name like 4 or 5 Kardashians. Right? So this puzzled me and bothered me enough that a few months ago I actually started to work on it just for myself. And so I started looking, and I wanted to move out of my field. So the person I want to share with you tonight is not a geologist or a geoscientist in any way. They come from the field of agronomy or agricultural sciences. And so this is a human being that I knew almost nothing about. And he is now one of my great heroes. This individual, well, you'll see. We talk a little about it. I guess with these types of talks, I'm always a little disappointed if I'm in the audience and I leave without one solid thing to remember forever. And so I made sure that we got that tonight. I want you to remember a name. The name is Norman Borlaug. Borlaug, it's a Norwegian name, B-O-R-L-A-U-G, Borlaug. Norman Borlaug. I want that name to be right up there. Hopefully, maybe even replace Hitler and Stalin and some of those other names. This is an individual that, well, most of us probably wouldn't be here today without this individual. So let me tell you a little about him. Norman Borlaug, born in 1914, and it's important to understand a little about what's going on in the world in 1914. In 1914, we had fewer than 1 billion people on planet Earth. To put that in perspective, we have more than 7.5 billion now. Right? So in a little over 100 years, we've more than sextupled the population of the Earth. Right? So in 1914, when this man Norman Borlaug was born, approximately 80% of the world population lived in what we call extreme poverty. This is poverty to the point where food is a question. This is poverty bordering on starvation or up to starvation. So this is the world he was born into. As a young man, he went to school at the University of Minnesota. He went on to earn 4 degrees, a Bachelor of Sciences degree in agronomy or plant science, and he did 2 masters, one on the genetics of plants and another on plant diseases. And then he finished with a PhD in genetics. Now, I know some of you probably heard that name, but there's some details here that I just found fascinating. So when I dove into him, I found some things I want to share. So looking at the world that he grew up in, where the majority of the world's population is living in extreme poverty, he realized he was fairly fortunate by the time he was a young man. This was part of his motivation for school, right? He wanted to get the best education he could, but if you do the math, he was actually a young man in school during the Great Depression. And this presented big problems for him. Fortunately, the University of Minnesota worked with him because he did not come from a wealthy family. So what he had to do was go to school, come out of school, and earn money. Take that saved money, go back to school. Well, there were very few places to work during the Great Depression. He was fortunate to get a job as a leader with the Civilian Conservation Corps. Now, a lot of you know about the Civilian Conservation Corps. If you don't, I'd ask you just to look at the sidewalks. Next time you're walking around Safford and parts of Thatcher, you'll see these little emblems imprinted into the concrete. A lot of our sidewalks were made by these young men from all over the country. If you go up on Mount Graham, you can see their work. So Norman, as a young man, became a leader of young men. These young men were getting paid $25 a month, $5 of which they were allowed to keep, $20 had to go home. The thing that he wrote about in his autobiography, that this was the first time that he saw starving people. He said these young men would come from all over the country and they would get off the train and they were like needles, just needle thin, starving young men. And of course, with the Civilian Conservation Corps, they had 3 square meals a day. So that situation improved dramatically. But that impression of seeing these very hungry young men, it stayed with him, and we'll see, it shapes his career. So he stays at the University of Minnesota. He's in and out just a little bit to earn money, as I say. He saw the effect of money and food, but he came to realize with over 80% of the world population in such a dire situation, literally on the edge of starvation, that money alone wouldn't solve this. This is not purely an economic problem, that something needed to be done with the world's food supply. So he very quietly set out to do this. Norman Borlaug worked for the DuPont laboratories in the northeast part of this country, right out of school, and was on his way to doing some things with plant genetics when Pearl Harbor occurred. And with Pearl Harbor, everything changed. He tried to join the Army, but they refused. He was working in DuPont laboratory, and that was considered to be essential for the war effort. So they kept him there. Now, this next part of the story is a little bit personal to me because I actually had relatives on Guadalcanal. It turns out that, and some of you, if you know a little bit about World War II, Guadalcanal was a big problem. We had a lot of Marines. We had thousands of Marines that were essentially stranded on this island with hostile Japanese, and the Japanese Navy controlled the waters around the island. And so we had to hurry up and do something fast. The Navy figured out we had radio contact with Marines, so if we could just simply get food close enough to shore, we could radio the Marines, tell them where it is, they can come pick it up. So the Navy sends in fast boats dumping food at night. The idea is it's going to float into shore. Well, the boxes that they put the food in to float it, this is long before good plastics and things like that as we know it, the glue melted in the water. So the food ends up on the bottom. So this ends up coming back to the States as a major problem that we need to solve right now. Guess which laboratory it ends up in? DuPont Laboratories. Norman Borlaug, in a week with his team of researchers, develops a waterproof glue. 1 week later, we've got food making it ashore on Guadalcanal. Look, that's not the story. That's just one story. I just thought that was an astonishing little detail. It's what he does after the war that affects all of us and really has affected the entire world. I was born in 1962, and this is about the time when Norman Borlaug's main work starts to really take hold and starts to affect the world. So I was born into a world that had a little less than 3 billion people. So we've got about 2.6 times that now, not quite 3, 2.6 or 2.8 times that now. Not quite tripled since then, but in my lifetime, we've more than doubled our population. And right now we're up around 7.6 billion, something like that. In my lifetime, Norman Borlaug, when I was born, in fact, he was working at a research institute in Mexico. And they had asked him down there, the Cooperative Wheat Research Production Program. They had asked him to come down there because they were having a very difficult time getting yields of wheat like they wanted. It was very difficult. He came down and started working. In his autobiography, he writes about it was very difficult. He thought he had made a big mistake, a career-ending mistake. He thought he might be stuck in a dead end. But he rapidly develops a series of techniques for breeding strains of wheat for a variety of reasons and doing these things all at once. So he starts to breed wheat to be more resistant to disease, sturdier against changes in weather, so thicker stalks, so wind, rain, hail, that sort of thing, less damaging, right? And this works. It works locally. Suddenly, the farmers in Mexico that are working with him are growing dramatically more wheat per acre than they've ever been able to before. Over the course of the next 25 years, those seed breeding techniques or crossing techniques that he developed, crossing thousands and thousands of times, will dramatically alter not just the agriculture of wheat in the world, but agriculture as a result of the techniques that he's developed, talking soy, corn, wheat, etc. Overall, we produce about 4 times more food per acre worldwide because of the techniques that Norman Borlaug developed. Wheat specifically is about 7 times more wheat per acre. And it's just an astonishing number. So moving from when I was born, again, 1962, roughly 3 billion people, a little less than that, but roughly 3 billion people, things have gotten better globally to the point where in 1962, when I was born, roughly 65%. So it had come down, but about 65% of the world's population living in poverty that a lot of us have never even seen except on TV. Right? What's happened in my lifetime because of Norman Borlaug's work, that number of human beings living right on the edge of starvation worldwide has dropped to less than 10%. What's happened to the population? Population has gone to over 7.5 billion. So we are, in fact, his techniques are so successful that I think it's relatively safe to say that we don't really have a food shortage in the world anymore. We do have a distribution shortage. And we do have still problems with food shortages in local places. But what I read, and I'm no expert in this, but what I read is that most of those problems are political and or military, right? That essentially the food is there, it's getting it to the right people at the right time, or creating a situation where they can grow it for themselves. So why am I telling you about Norman Borlaug? Remember I said, because it bothers me? It bothers me that I can name 10 mass murderers from the 20th century, And I wanted to be able to name at least 10 people like this. To me, this is an example of exquisite leadership. This is a young man who figured out what he was capable of doing, what he enjoyed doing, I presume, but what he could be productive with, and stayed with it through year after year, making decisions that would put him in a position where it would bring out the very best of him. And so in addition to remembering that name, I want to encourage all of you as you move forward, and I don't know where you're going. This generation, for me, is a tremendous, exciting mystery. I look out at my students this semester, and I am overwhelmed with just question marks. I don't know who you are, and I don't know where you're going in the very best way. You don't necessarily want to be the same as the previous generation, but I think the events of COVID-19, et cetera, the year 2020, I think is creating opportunities for you in ways that I'm not capable of imagining. I cannot think of all the opportunities that are out there for you. So I bring up Norman Borlaug in that story to make the point that you are really your very best asset in life. And if you want to contribute the very most that you can in life, if you want to make a large or small change in the world for the better, remember to guard that asset. You are your most valuable asset. Now, being influenced by others, having heroes, having influence is wonderful, but Norman Borlaug was not imitating someone. He was not really following in someone's footsteps. He was making his own life. And I encourage you to do that. One of the things I always tell my students is to choose. Everything you do, make a conscious choice. Choose and be aware of that choice. Like me, you're gonna choose wrong sometimes. I do that plenty. I've made wrong choices, big and small. But one of the advantages of making a willful, conscious choice in almost everything is that when I make a right choice, I know it, and when I make a wrong choice, I know it as well. And I can stand by it, and it helps me. I learn from those wrong choices, not by denying them or hiding them or anything else, but by keeping them right in front of me, right? So that every single day I can remember, I do these things well, these things I don't do well, and just keep moving forward, trying to be the best of me that I can possibly be. And I have something I wanted to say about fame too, and it ties into all of this. I think a lot of you can probably see it. I'm disturbed by our perception of fame. Remember my funny comment earlier about the Kardashians? I'm serious about that. That bothers me to death. It bothers me. Well, not quite to death, but sometimes it feels close to it. It really bothers me. 12 human beings have walked on the moon, and I've yet to have a student come into my room that can name all 12, right? And yet pretty commonly, if I ask a group of folks to name Kardashians, we get up to like 5 of them. And that's beyond me. I don't watch that kind of TV very much, but I think I can name 3 of them. Is Chloe one of them? Yeah, so see, and obviously I got Kim, I got Chloe, so now I'm right up there with most people with the astronauts, right? Well, I want to try to wrap this up for you because I promised I wouldn't take much time, and I kind of do have a conclusion here. Let me see if we can find it here. Yeah, I do have a conclusion. And this is a lesson that I keep learning over and over again. I learn this lesson almost weekly. It's a lesson from my childhood, but it goes right to this and my deliberate action of choosing to identify people like Norman Borlaug, these people that have done tremendous things. I forgot to mention, by the way, and this is a very difficult number to verify, but the folks that know more about Norman Borlaug, what he did than I do, they say he saved approximately 1 billion lives in the last 50 years. 1 billion lives. That makes those other people that I mentioned a little while ago, the one with the H and the one with the S, those people, pale in insignificance, right? So we can focus on the positive, and focus is what I want to conclude with. The lesson that I keep learning is that whatever I focus on grows. whether I intended to or not. Simply the act of focusing my energy or my actions on something will cause it to grow both in me as well as around me. And so making aware at all times what you're choosing to focus on, you'll discover that the things that you love, the things that you're good at will grow and grow and grow. And those things which hold you back, those negative forces in your life, those things will diminish. My experiences are always with me. I always have negative voices in my head, all of that. But simply focusing on what I want to do in the world, what are the positive changes that I want day to day, moment by moment, whether it's simply getting an exam graded and returned to my students, or something bigger like job at Eastern Arizona College teaching geology and astronomy, right? Whatever it is, every time I deliberately, consciously made a choice to focus on something and stay consistent with it, it's always rewarded me. Sometimes in ways I wouldn't expect, sometimes totally unanticipated ways. I love that expression, make plans, but don't plan the results. You know, this idea that we work day by day and we try to achieve things. Sometimes we're given achievements that look a little different from what we had planned, and yet we still get there. Focus, and what you focus on will grow. Thank you all very, very much.
I should be the one thanking you, because that was honestly an incredible talk. It was. Yeah, it was honestly very inspiring, because who knows who could become the heroes of our generation? Who knows who could be the person who changed the world for the better, or for the worse on some occasions. But in general, we don't know that. We don't know our potential. We have to focus and aim and fire. I mean, there's a lot of good people out there that have done amazing things. And I can rattle off a few off the top of my head, like Nikola Tesla, the Wright brothers. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to focus on the present at the moment. Honored guests and fellow Phi Theta Kappa members, I am pleased to present to you these candidates for membership in our honor society. These students have fulfilled all requirements for membership and have been selected because they have chosen scholarship, leadership, service, and fellowship as their hallmarks. I remember them and recommend them for acceptance into Lambda Omicron chapter of the Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society of the two-year college. Now, with this, all of you have submitted a bio of sorts, and they've been summarized, which will be read by the PTK advisor and the rest of it.
We are very pleased this evening to introduce you into membership into Lambda Omicron chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. An outstanding 21 new members are being welcomed into our community of scholars today. Phi Theta Kappa, at its core, has 4 hallmarks: scholarship, leadership, service, and fellowship. As new members, you will be challenged to use those hallmarks to guide you as you use the opportunities offered by Phi Theta Kappa to build on a foundation of academic excellence and qualities of outstanding citizenship. I am pleased to be able to report that each of you, some in more ways than one, has demonstrated qualities supportive of these hallmarks. First, the hallmark of scholarship will certainly be of importance to you as an induction class with diverse academic interests and career goals. Your academic majors and career goals range from medicine, nutrition, business, computer science, elementary education, dentistry, engineering, chemistry, communications, nursing, political science, music, early childhood education, to name a few. 6 of you have perfect 4.0 GPA, quite impressive. In fact, as a collective group, you exceed the GPA requirements that Phi Theta Kappa has as a 3.5, and you exceed that on average by 3.79, which is, I believe, the highest average in my recent memory. You are significant as a class, as several of you represent the new trend of earning a substantial amount of college credits while still in high school. Some of you are even still in high school and will be earning your associate's degree at the same time as your high school diploma. You are described by instructors as hardworking, dedicated to your studies, active learners demonstrating strong discipline and intellectual curiosity. You enthusiastically participate in class discussions. You are motivated, respectful, and mature. You're responsible, enthusiastic, and diligent. In fact, one reference described you as, quote, happy, dedicated, loyal, and professional. As I read those letters of references, I was blown away with how your instructors, many who see hundreds of students a semester, describe you uniquely and individually, as a person and as a scholar. Next, a hallmark of leadership will most certainly be enhanced by your entry into Phi Theta Kappa. Many of you displayed leadership skills in high school, serving on student councils or leading student clubs, serving as captains on sports teams. These leadership traits have continued in college, where several of you are active with the Association of Students of Eastern Arizona College, or you lead clubs on the EAC campus. A number of you have demonstrated that it is possible to be a successful student, regardless of age, also while raising a family. As husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, your commitment to education has the ability to change the generations before you and come after you. And I applaud you for that dedication. With us today are many, many first-generation students, students who are first to attend college in their family. Each of you leads by example for your family, displaying the values of hard work and dedication towards your education and career goals. Third, the hallmark of service is obviously an importance to you. We have tutors, Boy Scout volunteers, and 4-H members. In high school, you were involved in the robotics club, music clubs, orchestra, band. Some of you are strong advocates for diversity and inclusion. Many of you are active in your churches, serving as teachers and leaders. We have those who are answer the call of military service by joining the military. The influence of your service is far-reaching and impacts our community in very significant ways. The fourth and final hallmark of Phi Theta Kappa is fellowship. We look forward to bringing you into our group the various life experiences and points of view of our new members. You come to us from all over Arizona, from big cities and small, from Safford, Pima, Thatcher, Payson, Duncan. We have some from Globe and Mesa, Morenci, Tucson, Vilas, and Sierra Vista. We have multiple representing the Native American tribes within Arizona, and several of you come from out of state and out of the country. Many of you are facing the challenges of working while going to school full time. And some of you have overcome tremendous obstacles such as health challenges or even economic challenges just to be here. Just to pursue education alone, you have exceeded, let alone exceeding in being a member of Phi Theta Kappa. You all have a wide range of hobbies, including running and road biking. We have a couple of foodies in the group. Like every college student, you enjoy sleeping in the outdoors. You like staying inside and watching movies or playing video games. Sports are a huge part of your life, both recreationally in high school or as a member of the EAC athletic teams. Phi Theta Kappa is at its best when people of diverse backgrounds, life experiences, and interests join together in fellowship. As each of you are qualified in your own ways to be members of Phi Theta Kappa. You have worked hard to earn this honor, and I congratulate you. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to introducing you and having your fellowship in our club. Thank you.
You are about to be inducted into a scholarly fellowship which embraces 2-year colleges, not only state, but of the nation and of the world. This fellowship is Phi Theta Kappa and is Lambda Omicron. I did that much. I took a year of Greek, but I don't remember much. After induction, you will find divine members and scholarship to which you must give of yourself in order that the organization may be meaningful to you. Our ideals may be expressed in the words of Sir Francis Bacon in his of studies. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. Their chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring. For ornament is in discourse, and for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. Read not to contradict and confuse, not to believe and take for granted, nor to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider.
So, now comes the fun part of presenting the emblem to you. Starting with the world's thickest candle, or in this case, it's symbolic of a torch, which in itself is symbolic of knowledge and the wisdom used to it. Now, the light it presents will be able to lead the way to better paths when times of judgment call. Also, with what's apparently most hottest flamer. You know, because being an example is never easy. And it is whatever. Now, this. In the meanwhile, we shall move on to the next.
Of life, with its white blood signifying intellectual associations. We wish to present you this rose as a symbol of our newly formed intellectual friendship. This is the emblem of Phi Theta Kappa. Over here. It consists of a golden slab keyed at the top and bottom. The golden field, like the escutcheon or coat of arms, refers to the golden opportunities that abound on every hand for society, hope to evidence their culture and perform good works. Since gold is the most noble of metals, it shall have a further significance to our society, for it shall represent the nobility attained by those who achieve intellectual leadership. Across the slab, you will observe a black band. It represents the three ideals which bound us together and the cultural self-control which is the necessary foundation for true wisdom, aspiration, and purity. Shining through the black enamel background are the three Greek letters which are the initials of those three mystic Greek words meaning wisdom, aspiration, and purity. Behind the band is a wreath, on the one side composed of oak leaves, on the other laurel. The oak leaves stand for stability and strength of character, as symbolized by the sturdy oak. The graceful curling leaves of laurel signify achievement and success, all attributes for membership in our society. Above the band is the representation of the head of Athena, the goddess of learning. In the base appear the mystic Greek letters meaning light and the light of knowledge and learning, a common ideal for members of Phi Theta Kappa in our society. This badge stands as a symbol for the high idealism of our organization and membership in our select group.
Right. Now I have the last. Notice the oath. You have stated the constitution of this organization, the purpose of which is to foster a spirit of devotion to study and the scholarly ideals among its members, and whose principles are embodied in the Greek letters, which stand for Pronomon, Thomos, and Kathosis, wisdom, aspiration, purity. Now that the standards and ideals of this organization have been fully revealed to you, you come to complete the pledge which admits you into the complete fellowship. Now which, on your programs, is an oath of fellowship. At the back, there's a bunch of blanks. So now please stand and raise your right hand to the square and repeat after me. I State your full name. Do solemnly promise on this 14th day of October 2020 to uphold the standards of Phi Theta Kappa and to make this object and aim foremost in my mind. And I do solemnly pledge allegiance to my fellow members and promise to aid them in all worthy endeavors. All right, you may put your hands down now. Now comes the fun part. Now, I apologize beforehand. I may botch a few names, but now's the chance for you guys to come up, sign your name in the mighty book, get a rose, and grab a temporary certificate. The real one will be coming via mail shortly. So, first off, Leah Ellen Ott.
Do you have a preference on which side?
Prefer with right hand.
Congratulations.
K. Baldwin. Kaylee May Blake. Ashlyn Gray Brown. Taylor Elliott. Benjamin Scott Fisher. Abigail Annie Hamilton. Garrett. Caitlin Hansen. And now it's Garrett John Hunt. Kelsey Jean Hunt. Joey Noel Jeffries. Kaylee Leanne Joe. Evan James Johnston. Luz Elena Anton. Patricia Jason Kitty. Jessica Tammy Matthews. Dylan C. Olson. Annette Pierce. Minna S. Elizabeth June Scott. And lastly, Mackenzie Page Waite. And congratulations to all of you. What we won, first off, is yours truly. But the person that would give a better explanation of what you yourselves are getting yourselves into is the person on the right here who's been around since the beginning of Phi Theta Kappa here at the AC, basically. I introduce to you Tonka Curtis.
Good evening, I'm Tonka Curtis and I teach French and Spanish at Eastern Arizona College and I'm co-advisor for the Emblem of Pipeline. It's my pleasure to welcome you into the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society and Fellowship of Scholars it offers. I salute you for your hard work and accomplishments at Eastern. In a few weeks, you'll receive an envelope that looks something like this, and in it it's going to have your certificate and a Phi Theta Kappa pin and your membership number that you'll use in future occasions. And during your EAC graduation, we invite you to also to wear these graduation stoles that will loan you for the ceremony, and you'll also wear and keep a Phi Theta Kappa tassel that you'll pick up at the EAC counseling office during the week of EAC graduation. Our next Phi Theta Kappa meeting is next Wednesday, October 21st at 3 o'clock in the AP conference room 229. And we meet every other Wednesday, and we'll be having spring 2021 PTK officer elections at the end of April for new officer positions, and perhaps some of you would be interested in holding an officer position. At this time, we'd like to take a group picture on the stage, and after the group picture, you are free to take pictures of the Phi Theta Kappa emblem. We hope that you become active members of Phi Theta Kappa, and may you continue to find success in scholastic and thank you.
Stage with their mask on. Yeah. If you want. No, whatever. We're just gonna take a good picture while we let these.
I guess I can use this thing.